Okay, thanks, Jen. I wanted to ask two questions. One is, can you talk a little bit about the, White House outreach to Senator Manchin and other senators on the Build Back Better Act in relation to the recent CPI index reports today? And then the second question is, I wondered what else the White House can do or should be doing with regards to women's reproductive rights, given everything that's happening. Specifically today, there was a ruling out of Texas that keeps the restrictions intact while the lawsuits play out. So I just wondered what else, aside from the codification of Roe in Congress, can and should the administration be doing?
Absolutely. Well, let me take the first one first. Let me first say that as it relates to the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index data this morning, let me start with the data. The data was taken in November. Even since that time, over the course of the last nearly 2 weeks, we've seen a decrease in costs in some of the areas that account for a big percentage of the rise in inflation. So about 50% of the inflation numbers, is attributed to the rising gas prices and the rising car prices. On gas prices, and we had a chart, maybe they'll pull it up again, that Brian Deese, our NEC director, talked about just yesterday. What we've seen in recent days are gas prices are coming down from their peak, and this obviously is not captured in the data, since the data was through the course of November. So in 20 states, gas is below their 20-year average in real terms, and natural gas is down 25% from its November average. We attribute this to the range of factors, including the president tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in coordination with partners around the world. But more broadly, we're seeing positive signs of supply chain bottlenecks being addressed that are helping address this as well. And we expect those numbers to continue to decrease across the country. The other piece and gas, I should also note, on the wholesale market is down over 30 cents per gallon since its peak, which is, again, a good sign. The other piece, as we're seeing as it relates to cars, is wholesale car prices are down as well, or used car prices are down as well. So when car dealers are purchasing cars, they are at a lower cost than they were before for a range of reasons, including the availability of chips, because we've helped solve some issues in the supply chain. That means that as we look to the first quarter of next year, or the first couple of months of next year, those car prices are going to keep coming down. One other third note, let me just note in the data, one of course, the factors as it relates to costs that consumers are experiencing, the American people are experiencing, is of course the cost of food when you go to the grocery store. 25% of that, our economists or economic experts estimate, is related to meat prices. You buy a pound of burger, you buy a poultry, whatever it may be. And our assessment here, and we've taken steps as it relates to our competition agenda, is that dominant corporations in these industries are taking advantage of their market power to raise prices while increasing their own profit margins. Meat prices are a very good example of that, something we're working to crack down on. And just to give you a sense, gross profit margins for big meat processors are up 50%, and net margins are up over 300%. That should not be the case. That is not all attributed to supply chain issues, et cetera. So I just wanted to dig into some of the data things there first, but I will note as it relates to how we have these conversations now with this data out, our argument is that this makes passing Build Back Better even more imperative, even more important, because what Build Back Better will do is it will start cutting costs early next year, including for childcare costs, cutting them in half in 2022, making preschool free for many families starting in 2022, saving families the $8,600 a typical family currently spends on preschool, leading to the construction of additional housing units starting in 2022. These are all areas, the way people, and the president just talked about this too, experience inflation, as you all know, is not through the data or graphs, as much as we love graphs in here, but it's about the costs on their family budgets. And so that's why in our view, and the president's view, the argument is even stronger to get it done now. The last thing I would note on this, and then I'll get to the other question you had, is that the president just noted, and I don't know if you saw, that he would be speaking with Senator Manchin early next week. Obviously, we're in touch at a staff level, but I will leave it, of course, to Senator Manchin to speak to that further. As